Charlie Zelenoff, the self-proclaimed GOAT, the greatest fighter in the history of combat sports. Charlie claims he can kill a great white shark with a single pandemic punch, and he claims he can knock out a gorilla. Claiming to possess this supernatural power, it would be irresponsible for Charlie not to call an ambulance for his victims prior to the fight. Most world champions prove themselves by fighting the best of the best. Not Charlie, though. Because of his fear of being confined in the ring, his inability to follow a fair set of rules, his need to avoid time limits on fights due to his abnormal lack of stamina, and subsequent need to call time out, the fact that he assaults people and needs to hide his fights from any authorities, his need to be able to start the fight before his opponents are ready, should he have the decency to inform them that it would be full contact, and finally his need to be able to raise his hands in victory without any officials to disqualify him for stopping early. Charlie can only get fights by randomly walking up to unknown fighters or non-fighters in fitness gyms in the early hours of the morning, 100 miles or so from his home, typically resulting in uneventful 10 to 20 second activities which really don't qualify as any sort of combat. This is a system that Charlie has developed over a decade of experimenting with securing all his many advantages he needs to manipulate video evidence into a boxing win. Sadly, these events are only uneventful and lack entertainment value. Today, Charlie attempts his 259th such interaction. Charlie has found the smallest opponent he will ever face. A young man about as small as a boxer can be, with no established boxing record. On paper, Charlie has several very unfair advantages, which should leave his opponent laying unconscious on the canvas or potentially in an intensive care unit or emergency room. Charlie is 1 foot taller and 60 pounds heavier than his opponent, and has a 12 to 14 inch reach advantage. Combine this with the fact that Charlie always starts his fights with the element of surprise by striking before his opponent is ready. This fight should result in a bloody, unconscious, battered, and beaten small opponent, a landmark victory which will be referred to anytime Charlie's name is mentioned. Charlie strikes too early, as always, and pours it on as fast as he can, trying to overwhelm his opponent before they realize it is full contact. Charlie seems to lack too much confidence to start a fight fairly, fearing that if his opponents are informed, they may get the first strike, and with Charlie's endurance at low subpar levels, this could lead to Charlie getting beaten badly. The opponent seems unfazed and wisely blocks his head with his gloves. A good move, as Charlie's barrage only connects with the man's gloves 7 times. Charlie looks at the camera, because everything Charlie does is for the camera. And finally, one last strike that hits his opponent's outstretched gloves and nowhere near a point-scoring area. Officially, the first strike would be void, as Charlie jumped the gun. The rest were ineffective and did not score points. Looking at the CompuBox numbers, the opponent did not throw any strikes, but scored points for defense. Since Charlie threw several punches with no significant strikes, his stats are in the negative. The win goes to the much smaller opponent. Looking at the overall picture, if Charlie can't properly and completely demolish a non-established fighter half his size, who never even threw back, if Charlie can't knock this young man unconscious, with all the many physical advantages, then we have to conclude beyond the shadow of a doubt that Charlie is incapable of executing a full knockout. There are rumors currently going around that Charlie is talking of going to the nearest kindergarten playground to find an opponent on his level to redeem himself.